Part 1. Marcus Foolweather sat in the polished white chair, his arms resting on cool plastic armrests beneath the glare of overhead LEDs. The air smelled faintly of antiseptic and artificial lavender, a manufactured kind of calm that never quite settled him. He shifted slightly, trying to ignore the way his shirt clung at the back from the thin sheen of sweat he hadn't noticed before. The nurse prepared the syringe with swift, practiced motions. Mid-40s, hair pinned back so tight it pulled at her temples. Her smile was mechanical, never quite reaching her eyes. "This is exciting, isn't it?" she said, tapping the syringe. The liquid inside shimmered faintly under the lights, almost iridescent. "You're part of history." Marcus offered a polite smile, thinner than hers. "That's what they keep telling me." She pinched his upper arm, and the needle slipped beneath the skin with hardly any sensation. The fluid pressed inward, smooth and quiet. A faint warmth spread through his shoulder, flowing outward in slow ripples. "Done," she said, removing the needle and applying a small adhesive strip. "Now we'll just observe for 15 minutes. He nodded, rolling his shoulders slightly as the warmth deepened. It pulsed softly under his skin like the faint afterglow of alcohol. He couldn't tell if it was nerves or something more. The nurse handed him a tablet, preloaded with a standard post-vaccination questionnaire. He flicked through the screens mechanically, answering without thinking. In the background, clinic staff moved with calm efficiency, their footsteps soft on the polished floor. Marcus's eyes drifted to the OmniVax pamphlet resting on the side table. The bold slogan seemed to shout at him even in silence. OmniVax, immunity for life. Beneath it, a smaller text promised salvation. One shot. Every disease. Total protection. Months of marketing had made that phrase impossible to avoid. OmniVax wasn't simply a vaccine, it was being hailed as the final answer to human frailty itself. Cancer, viruses, autoimmune disorders, eradicated in one injection. The fusion of hundreds of dormant viral genomes into a single master sequence, guiding the immune system with unparalleled precision. At least, that was the promise. His phone buzzed against his leg, vibrating softly. "Anna." "Hey," he answered. "You went through with it," she said. She didn't sound angry, just tired. "Yeah, I did." There was a pause on her end, the silence between them heavier than anything either of them might have said. Then, at last, she remarked, "I wish you would have waited." "I know." Her voice tightened. "They fused hundreds of dormant viral strains, Marcus. Even if they're deactivated, recombination doesn't always behave the way models predict. There are unknowns. The trials were strong. You know that." He kept his voice even, though part of him still braced for the debate they'd already had too many times. The modeling passed every milestone. They accelerated approvals under political pressure. You've seen the raw data, same as I have. The genetic scaffolding is complex. She hesitated, and he could almost hear her weighing whether to press harder. "You know, I've been watching the anomaly reports. There've been instabilities during secondary integrations." Marcus closed his eyes for a moment, leaning back against the chair. "Anna, I don't want to live my life waiting for the next pandemic. After watching my sister," he caught himself, "I need to believe this can work." Her voice softened. "I know why you did it." He didn't answer at first. Nothing they said now would resolve the divide between caution and desperation that stood between them. "I feel fine," he finally offered. "That could change. If it does, I'll call you." A longer pause this time. "Just be careful." He nodded reflexively, though she couldn't see it. "I will." The call ended, leaving only the faint hum of the lights above him. The nurse returned and checked his vitals. "Everything looks perfect, Mr. Foolweather. You're free to go. If you notice anything unusual, please call the number on your card. Most mild side effects resolve within 24 hours. "Thank you." He stood slowly, stretching his arms and rolling his shoulders again. The warmth lingered, spreading faintly across his chest now, like embers alight beneath his sternum. Outside, the March air cut against his face as he stepped onto the clinic's pristine campus. Across the street, news vans clustered near the media tent. Reporters stood before cameras, their voices bright with optimism as they covered Omnivax's civilian launch. The words historic day and global milestone floated from nearby speakers. Marcus zipped up his jacket and walked toward his car. His phone buzzed again. Another news alert. Omnivax surpasses 1 million injections in first 48 hours. He slid into the driver's seat. As he started the engine, a brief wave of heat flared in his chest. Sharper this time, but gone as quickly as it came. He caught his reflection in the rearview mirror. A bit flushed, but otherwise normal. The ride home was uneventful. The warmth pulsed again as he stepped into his apartment, but he told himself it was nothing. Adjustment, just like they said. Temporary. That night, Marcus slept without difficulty, though his dreams unfolded strangely. He stood in an endless white void, surrounded by throbbing, translucent shapes, their forms drifting as if suspended in water. Lattice-like strands wove through them, viral helixes twisting together in intricate spirals. The structures merged and separated with a fluid grace that felt purposeful, though alien. He should have felt uneasy. Instead, it was almost hypnotic. By morning, the dream dissolved into fragments, leaving only a faint echo of warmth in his chest and a residual heaviness behind his sternum. His phone chimed again, another alert, day 3, 3 million inoculated. Only minor side effects reported. Company confirms success. Scrolling further, Marcus noticed a growing string of social media posts trending under the hashtag OmnivaxDreams. He frowned slightly. The warmth pulsed again. And still, he told himself it was nothing. Part 2. 3 days after the injection, Marcus sat on his porch, cradling a cup of coffee that had long since gone cold. A damp March wind brushed across the neighborhood, stirring the brittle grass. He barely noticed. The warmth in his chest hadn't disappeared. If anything, it had grown more constant, still not painful, but never fully absent either, and every so often, it flared gently. He tried to dismiss it as part of the adaptation process. The literature, the endless pamphlets, interviews, press briefings, had all said mild sensations were normal as the immune system adjusted. Still, that didn't explain the occasional tingling, like faint electric fingers crawling outward through his arms. Across the street, Rex, Mr. Connor's German shepherd, stood rigid on the lawn. The dog's posture wasn't quite right. Shoulders squared, head slightly cocked at an awkward angle, eyes fixed directly on Marcus. The dog let out a low, unsettling growl. Rex had known Marcus since he was a pup. He had never once growled at him before. "Rex," Marcus said softly. The dog's breathing grew heavier, its ears flat against its skull, though it made no move to advance. For a moment, Marcus wondered if Rex was even growling at him, or if it was reacting to something it sensed but couldn't process. The front door opened. Mr. Connors stepped out, leash in hand. "Come on, boy." The dog remained frozen, its gaze locked. Only after several sharp whistles did Rex finally turn, his gait stiff as though resisting unseen strings. Mr. Connors glanced toward Marcus apologetically before ushering the animal inside. Marcus rubbed his arms, feeling the warmth inside his chest throb once again, as though responding to his unease. Inside, he set his empty mug on the kitchen counter and booted up his laptop, meaning to distract himself with work. But the headlines caught his eye almost immediately. CDC monitoring localized medical events among Omnivax recipients. Minor seizure clusters reported. Officials urge calm. Company dismisses early genetic recombination theories. He scrolled further. A nurse in Oregon described sudden violent tremors in several patients. A man in Texas reportedly collapsed in a grocery store after swelling grotesquely, his lymph nodes visibly distended. Each article carried the same reassurance from Omnivax officials. Isolated incidents, likely unrelated, no indication of systemic failures. The official tone was calm. But the pattern underneath was growing harder to ignore. His phone buzzed. Anna again. He hesitated before answering. "Hey, I'm assuming you've seen the updates," she said. Her voice was sharper this time, controlled, but urgent. "Yes. The data sets are expanding. These aren't outliers anymore, Marcus. They're clusters." And the CDC's internal models are flashing warnings. Do you have access to the CDC models? He asked, though the answer was obvious. I never stopped monitoring the rollout. You knew I wouldn't, she replied. They're seeing instability markers now, genetic recombination that doesn't match predicted parameters. Marcus rubbed his temples. The recombinant genome isn't supposed to self-replicate after immune adaptation. That was the whole point. That was the theory. Anna's voice wavered slightly, the strain seeping through. But with hundreds of viral genomes interacting simultaneously, we can't map every possible folding permutation. He leaned against the kitchen counter, eyes falling to his reflection in the darkened window. So why aren't they halting the program? Because pulling it now means admitting failure on a global stage. Legal liability, financial ruin, public panic. Take your pick. They're buying time while they scramble behind closed doors. Her words rang too true to argue. You're still feeling okay? She asked after a moment. Marcus debated whether to mention the warmth, the strange pulse, the increasingly vivid dreams, even Rex's behavior. But something held him back, whether pride, fear, or simply a desire to delay acknowledging how close the crisis might be to him personally. I'm fine. Anna didn't respond immediately. When she spoke, her voice had softened again. Stay alert. If anything changes, promise me you'll tell me. I will. They disconnected, and Marcus set the phone down slowly. The screen dimmed. In the silence, the warmth in his chest flared again, firmer this time. As night fell, Marcus found himself restless. He slipped on his jacket and stepped outside for a walk. The streets were quieter than usual. Fewer cars, fewer porch lights. Even the air seemed to carry an unspoken tension, as if the neighborhood itself had grown nervous. Turning onto Maple Avenue, he passed a corner store where neon signs flickered against the windows. Up ahead, a sudden scream cut through the stillness. Marcus froze. The scream twisted quickly into panicked shouting. He jogged forward, rounding the corner, and saw the source. A young man knelt on the sidewalk, hands gripping his head, body spasming violently. His back arched and twisted in sharp, unnatural jolts. Onlookers stood at a distance, uncertain whether to approach or flee. Marcus approached slowly, his stomach tightening. The man's convulsions grew more severe. Beneath his skin, something bulged and shifted unnaturally, rolling along his arms and torso as though something inside him struggled to emerge. His neck thickened, veins pulsing darkly beneath the surface. Then, with a sickening wet sound, the flesh of his forearms split open. Tendrils erupted, branching growths of slick, fibrous tissue that twisted in the air like grotesque vines. Gasps and screams broke out from the small crowd. A few turned and fled. Others stood rooted in horror. Marcus couldn't move. The warmth in his chest surged again, synchronizing, responding to the scene as though the two were connected. Sirens wailed in the distance. Minutes later, a paramedic team arrived. They wore partial hazmat gear, clearly briefed for something far worse than a simple medical emergency. One paramedic wielded a long restraint pole while the other approached cautiously. By then, the man had collapsed entirely, partially cocooned by his own writhing growths. Transparent fluid pooled beneath him, seeping from nodules sprouting along the pulsing tendrils. One paramedic caught Marcus's eye. "Sir, you need to step back immediately." Marcus obeyed, retreating across the street, but still unable to tear his gaze away as the responders worked under the flashing lights. The warmth inside his chest pulsed once more, harder this time. And for the first time, it wasn't simply heat. It was movement, something shifting deep inside him. Part 3. The knock came at dawn, sharp, insistent, impossible to ignore. Marcus was already half awake when the first strike landed, the pulse in his chest flaring as if reacting before his mind could register the sound. The knock repeated, louder this time. A man's voice followed, calm but carrying authority. "Mr. Foolweather. Special Agent Louis Dre, Department of Public Health Oversight. Please open the door." Marcus sat up, legs swinging off the side of the bed. The warmth in his chest expanded in slow, insistent waves, and beneath it, there was something else now. a faint tremor, like silk brushing against the inside of his ribs. Outside the bedroom window, headlights cut through the gray dawn. 2 black SUVs idled at the curb. He could make out several figures, rigid postures, watchful eyes. He pulled on a sweatshirt and moved toward the door, adrenaline starting to churn beneath his skin. His mind raced with questions, but none of them found clear footing. Opening the door, he found Agent Dre standing squarely on the porch. Early 40s, military posture, dark overcoat. His badge hung from a lanyard around his neck, plainly visible. 2 men flanked him, one another agent, the other wearing a sealed hazmat suit with a clear face shield. The one in the suit held a compact containment case at his side. Dre spoke first, his voice level but unyielding. "Mr. Foolweather, we need you to come with us." Marcus's throat tightened. "Why?" "For your safety. And for others." He glanced at the containment case. "I don't understand. I haven't reported any symptoms." "That's exactly why you're here." Dre's gaze didn't waver. "You've been identified as a common contact point in several active anomaly clusters. We believe you may be carrying a variant strain." Marcus's mind tumbled. "But I've been following the updates. The cases they're reporting, these mutations, it's happening to others. I've had nothing like that." "That's precisely what makes you important," Dre said. "And why are we moving now?" Marcus looked past him, toward the waiting vehicles. Armed agents stood by the SUVs, watching silently. Resistance wouldn't accomplish anything. He swallowed hard and stepped outside. The hazmat-suited man moved in close, scanning him with a handheld device that emitted soft pulses of light. Readings streamed across a small embedded screen, symbols and values Marcus couldn't begin to interpret. The man gave a slight nod to Dre, who gestured Marcus toward the SUV. The door shut with a heavy thud, sealing him inside. The drive carried them beyond the city limits, out past industrial complexes and into forested buffer zones where government signs warned against trespassing. Eventually, they approached a high-security facility ringed in steel fencing topped with spiraled razor wire. Watchtowers punctuated each corner, manned and alert. Inside the gates, the compound resembled nothing Marcus had expected. It wasn't a hospital or a research center, but something in between, a place built quickly for a crisis no one wanted to admit existed. As they exited the vehicle, Marcus caught sight of other transports in the courtyard. CDC vans, military carriers, multiple hazmat units. The scale of the operation sent fresh waves of unease through him. Inside, the air smelled faintly metallic, tinged with sterilizing agents that clung to the sinuses. Technicians in full biohazard suits moved briskly through white corridors, pushing sealed carts or consulting tablets dense with scrolling data. They led him to an isolated observation chamber, a room of thick glass walls overlooking rows of diagnostic equipment. Inside, a woman waited behind a central console. She stood as Marcus entered, her face framed by severe, rectangular glasses. Her posture was clinical, but her eyes carried a sharp calculation. She extended a hand. "Mr. Foolweather. I'm Dr. Evelyn Sarin." Marcus shook her hand, noting the firmness of her grip. He recognized her name, Omnitech's lead researcher, often featured in the rollout briefings. Dre remained behind him, silent. Marcus tried to keep his voice steady. "I've heard of you." "That's understandable," Sarin said. "And right now, you're more central to my work than either of us anticipated." He tensed. "I haven't experienced any of them," he faltered, searching for words that didn't sound hysterical. "Mutations." "That's part of the problem," Sarin replied. She gestured toward one of the nearby monitors. Its display showed scrolling chains of colored, interwoven genetic markers. "Your immune system has responded to the hybrid scaffolding differently from most recipients." "In what way?" "You're stabilizing it." The words hit hard. Sarin continued, voice calm but uncomfortably detached. "The recombinant sequences, hundreds of dormant viral genomes fused together, were designed to trigger immune training and then go quiet. In most patients, that's exactly what happens. In others, an increasingly disturbing percentage, the scaffolding destabilizes. Uncontrolled recombination triggers the growth phenomena you've seen in the news. She paused. But you are neither. Marcus struggled to absorb it. So I'm infected. Not infected in the sense you're picturing. You're carrying the hybrid strain. But instead of breaking down into chaotic mutations, your system is balancing the unstable elements. The viral scaffold is integrating smoothly within you. Dre spoke now, folding his arms. Which makes you one of two things, a risk or a potential solution. Marcus shook his head. The people I've seen, the man in the street, others, they were drawn to me. Weren't they? Saren's expression darkened slightly. Preliminary models suggest that's likely. We're observing early signs of collective coordination. Hive-like responses. It's possible the recombinant variants are attracted to stable hosts, acting on an instinct to find equilibrium. He stared at her, feeling his stomach turn. You're saying I'm some kind of anchor? Saren gave a slight nod. Or a seed. The warmth pulsed again beneath his sternum, stronger now, seemingly synchronized with his anxiety. You think I'm controlling them? Marcus asked. No. Not consciously. But the viral structures may recognize your stabilized genome as a viable correction template. Their convergence may be a primitive form of adaptation, an attempt at survival through proximity. Dre's voice cut through. That's the optimistic version. The pessimistic version, Saren said, is that the hive mind consolidates around you and accelerates its evolution. Marcus felt his legs grow weak. He steadied himself against the glass wall, voice low. And what happens then? That's what we're here to find out. Saren's composure faltered briefly before she caught herself. You may represent our only chance at modeling a suppression therapy, assuming we act before the convergence advances any further. Before Marcus could respond, a shrill alarm sounded from the corridor, slicing through the air. Red emergency lights flashed along the ceiling. An intercom voice broke through in clipped bursts. Containment breach, Sector 3. Unauthorized bioactivity detected. Dre's jaw tightened. We've lost another sector. Saren's eyes narrowed. That was faster than expected. Marcus's chest throbbed again. Through the observation glass, technicians sprinted past. Down one distant hall, Marcus caught a glimpse of shifting movement. A shape not entirely human pressed against containment glass, tendrils swaying from its torso. Its skin rippled unnaturally, membranous tissues stretching across its limbs. They weren't searching blindly. They were searching for him. And the thing inside him was answering. Part 4. The walls trembled as a deep rumble rolled through the compound. A low-frequency vibration carried beneath Marcus's feet, followed by a sharp metallic groan from somewhere deeper inside the facility. Emergency lights strobed crimson, slicing across faces drawn taut with urgency. Sirens blared overhead, each rise punctuated by distant detonations echoing from far within the structure. In the fortified observation room, Marcus stood frozen beneath the dimmed lights. Thick blast shutters had sealed the glass walls, closing off their view of the chaos unfolding elsewhere. But even behind reinforced plating, the vibrations grew stronger. The warmth in his chest throbbed in response, synchronized, as though reacting to the collective force advancing through the facility. Saren barked orders into a secured comlink. Seal corridors G through L. Deploy secondary barriers. Non-essential personnel, full evacuation. Behind her, live monitors displayed real-time video feeds from the sublevels. The infected no longer resembled individuals. Instead, masses of partially fused bodies formed shifting structures, tissue melting into tissue. Rib cages arched unnaturally, torsos fused into writhing biological architecture. Limbs clawed forward, their rhythm disturbingly organized. This was no longer a random mutation, it was designed. Dre burst into the chamber, sweat sheening his brow. They've breached the sublevel holding cells. We've lost full containment. How many casualties? Saren asked without turning from the monitors. Unknown. Half the security team's gone dark. They're coordinating, Marcus said quietly. His voice trembled, though he couldn't tell if it was fear or the thing inside him speaking. They're not moving like before. Dre nodded grimly. They've begun targeting structural weaknesses, bypassing bulkheads. Like they know the blueprints. Marcus stared at the monitors, the hive masses rippling across the screen. His chest burned again, the force inside him growing more insistent, as though the mass sought to align itself with him. "They're drawn to me," Marcus whispered. "Yes." Saren's tone was colder now, less analytical, more guarded. "And they're accelerating. Can you still use my blood to stop this?" Saren hesitated. That was always the working model. If we can extract enough viable protein scaffolding from your stabilized genome, we may be able to synthesize a suppressant. Dre scoffed. "May? The whole place is collapsing and you're still talking about May." "The rate of recombination exceeded our projections weeks ago," Saren snapped back. "The models are unstable. The recombinant genome isn't behaving like a single virus. It's evolving, iterating in real time." Another rumble shook the room. Marcus grabbed the edge of the console for balance. "Then what's your plan?" Saren's face hardened. "There's one contingency left. Total sterilization. Full firebomb protocol." Dre flinched. "You're serious?" "We're hours from a full breach," Saren said. "If the hive gets beyond this facility, global spread becomes inevitable." Marcus's stomach nodded. "You're going to destroy the entire compound." "We may have no alternative," Saren said flatly. Before anyone could respond, the intercom crackled to life. The voice that came through was not one of the standard security officers. It was younger, strained, and unfamiliar. "Dr. Saren, you need to hear this. We've got an external clearance override. Level 5. A visitor is requesting immediate entry, medical emergency credentials." Saren stiffened. "Who?" The voice hesitated. "Anna Foolweather." Marcus's head snapped toward the speaker. "Anna? What the hell is she doing here?" "She accessed through off-site containment channels," the voice continued. "Credentials verified. Secondary bioscreen confirms cleanliness." Saren's jaw tensed. "Bring her through. Full escort. Triple screen all secondary access points." Minutes later, the sealed lab doors opened. Anna entered the observation room, wearing a fitted blue containment suit. Her faceplate revealed her expression, grim, but focused. As she stepped forward, Marcus saw the exhaustion in her eyes, but also something more, determination. "You shouldn't have come," Marcus said. "I didn't have a choice," she replied. "They were working blind. I've been monitoring the recombinant variants since the first anomalies broke containment, and I've seen where your models were failing." Saren studied her coolly. "You've been inside the back-end data stream." Anna didn't flinch. "I never stopped analyzing the raw markers." Dre's gaze darted between them. "You had access to all of this? For how long?" "Long enough to know what we're facing," Anna replied. "The mutations aren't random. They're following a convergence pattern." Saren folded her arms. "We've seen the adaptive sequences." "You've seen fragments," Anna countered. "The hybrid strain is trying to stabilize. It's searching for equilibrium, and Marcus is its template." Saren's expression tightened but didn't deny it. "The hive mass isn't seeking destruction," Anna continued. "It's seeking correction. Marcus's immune response is teaching it how to reorganize. That's why the infected are converging on him." "They're evolving into him?" "Into a version of him," Anna said. "Or using him as scaffolding to build something new." Saren's voice was measured. "Which raises the question, can we intercept that adaptation pathway before it completes?" Anna stepped to the console and produced a tablet, already loaded with her sequencing models. "If we can extract a fresh plasma sample from Marcus, we may be able to synthesize a destabilization antigen, something that interrupts the scaffold integration before full replication completes." Marcus stared at her. "A cure." "A suppressant," Anna corrected. "It won't reverse the damage already done, but it may stop the expansion." Saren's fingers flew across the interface, scanning Anna's data. After a tense pause, she spoke. "It's possible. And it's better than the alternative." Dre exhaled, his tension barely masked. "And if this doesn't work?" Saren's tone remained clinical. Then we execute sterilization protocols. The room trembled again. A deeper, more sustained vibration that rattled the ceiling fixtures. The monitors displayed the hive's leading edge as it pressed against the inner blast doors, tendrils probing and mapping the sealed barriers. "They're adapting faster than we projected," Dre said, voice low. Anna's eyes locked on Marcus. "We have to start the extractions. Now." Marcus nodded, feeling the warmth inside him coil, as though it too sensed the narrowing window. "I'm ready," he said. Part 5. The laboratory had become a war room. Machines hummed steadily beneath dim amber emergency lights. Banks of monitors streamed genetic models, protein scaffolds, and live mutation simulations at speeds the human eye struggled to track. The suppressant prototype rotated slowly inside a sealed glass chamber, a pale blue solution that shimmered gently, almost hypnotically, as the machines worked to finalize synthesis. Anna stood at the primary console, hands flying across the interface, eyes locked on cascading data feeds. 36 hours without sleep had hollowed her face, but her focus never wavered. Behind her, Marcus sat slumped against the far wall. The warmth inside his chest was no longer abstract, but steady, forceful, and sentient. With each beat, he could feel the thing inside him pressing outward, as though trying to reach the hive closing in from beyond the walls. "They're almost here," Dre said from the observation window, his voice tense but contained. "Western sublevels have been breached. The hives are within 50 meters of this sector." Marcus forced himself upright, jaw clenched. "They're not coming for the facility. They're coming for you," Anna said, not looking up from her work. "The moment we isolated your samples, the hive began accelerating its approach." "They feel the separation," Marcus whispered. "They want to merge." Beyond the reinforced glass, the biological mass shifted like a living tide. What had once been hundreds of mutated individuals was now one massive organism. Flesh flowed along the floor in coordinated waves, tendrils retracting and extending, their movements disturbingly purposeful. Faces still flickered briefly within the shifting tissues, half-formed, partially absorbed, their expressions frozen in a grotesque blend of agony and resignation. Dre turned from the window, lowering his voice. "You can feel them, can't you?" Marcus nodded slowly, his hand pressed instinctively to his chest. "They're calling." Saren entered briskly, glancing between Anna's station and the expanding hive mass on the monitors. Her voice remained composed, but her eyes betrayed a crack in her confidence. "The suppressant is nearly ready. The delivery unit is loaded for dispersal." She gestured toward the mobile canister platform stationed near the lab center, a pressurized chamber fitted with a rapid aerosol deployment system. "We're prepared to flood the affected sectors as soon as the synthesis completes," she said. Marcus's voice was tight. "But you still need one last sample." Anna finally looked up. "The recombinant genome is still shifting. Without a final plasma draw, the suppressant's efficacy drops by nearly 60%. And the closer they get," Marcus trailed off. Anna nodded grimly. "The more volatile your blood chemistry becomes." The building shuddered again. Distant impacts sent faint metallic echoes through the floor. "We're running out of time," Dre said. "They're using coordinated pulses, timing their impacts with structural resonance. They're trying to crack the walls like a shell." Marcus felt a sick certainty settle over him. "They're learning." "No," Saren corrected. "They're evolving." The sensation in Marcus's chest surged sharply, forcing him to brace against the wall. The warmth wasn't warmth anymore. It was pressure, pushing outward like an expanding membrane. "They're synchronizing with me," he rasped. Anna stepped to his side, prepping the extraction kit. "We have to take the final draw. Now." The blast doors groaned under the weight of the advancing mass. With a thunderous metallic crack, the hinges gave way, folding inward as the hive surged into view. The chamber beyond is filled with shifting sinew and writhing appendages. Tendrils probed the air, delicate filaments spreading and retracting with terrifying precision. The infected no longer resembled any human form. They were components now, dissolved into a singular organism pulsing with one intelligence. "They're not attacking," Dre said, lowering his weapon slightly. "They're waiting." Marcus stepped forward, unable to resist the pull. His chest thrummed in perfect rhythm with the entity before him. "They're seeking integration," he whispered. Anna moved quickly, sterilizing his arm. "Hold still." The tendrils extended closer, splitting into hundreds of hair-like strands that trembled as though sensing Marcus's proximity. The mass made no overt move to strike it. Anna found the vein instantly, sliding the needle into his arm. The vial filled slowly, the blood swirling with an unnatural blue undertone, a visible sign of the recombinant structures flowing through him. As the vial sealed, the hive reacted. The tendrils snapped forward. "Enough!" Saren barked. "Get him back!" Dre grabbed Marcus by the shoulders, yanking him away as a filament sliced through the air inches from his face. The mass surged, tendrils lashing and retracting as the organism sensed the disturbance. Anna sprinted to the synthesizer, locking the final vial into place. The machines roared to life as the sequencing algorithms recalibrated with the fresh sample. "Final synthesis underway," Anna shouted. The hive responded to the shift instantly. The organism quivered, growing more aggressive, its appendages slamming against the glass with rhythmic force. "They know," Marcus gasped. "They know we're breaking the connection." The canister display ticked upward as the suppressant finalized. 72%, 89%, 94%. The structure outside buckled, sections of tissue splitting into branching pseudopods that clawed for entry. The synthesizer beeped. "Suppressant ready," Anna confirmed. "Deploying now." With a roar, the system released the aerosol suppressant into the air vents and directly into the chamber beyond. Thick white vapor exploded from nozzles, filling the corridor with dense fog that stung the senses. The hive convulsed instantly. Tendrils recoiled as black lesions bloomed along its shifting skin. The synchronized pulsations faltered, breaking into spasms. High-pitched shrieks filled the air, emanating from deep within the mass, a collective scream. Sections of the organism began sloughing off, collapsing into gelatinous piles as the recombinant structures unraveled. Nodules ruptured. Membranes tore. Entire portions of the hive dissolved in rhythmic collapse. Dre opened fire as exposed cores of the creature spasmed helplessly. His rounds tore through softened tissue, now incapable of resisting. Marcus dropped to his knees, clutching his chest. The second pulse inside him, once insistent, now faded into a weaker echo. "They're breaking apart," Saren said breathlessly. "The suppressor is destabilizing replication across all sectors." The final thrashes of the hive filled the corridor as massive portions of the structure collapsed inward. Within minutes, what had once been a singular, coordinated entity dissolved into scattered, twitching remains, lifeless and twitching spasms of broken tissue. The alarms continued to blare, but the assault was over. Only the consequences remained. Part 6. The protest lines outside Omnitech's corporate towers stretched for blocks. Angry voices collided with flashing cameras, picket signs, and a sea of microphones feeding endless live broadcasts. Behind concrete barricades, federal agents escorted a string of black SUVs through a narrow security corridor, the vehicles slipping past the surging crowds like funeral processions. The angry rhythm of chants rose behind them. No more Omnivax. Justice for the infected. Never again. Inside his hospital room, Marcus watched it unfold on the small television mounted in the corner. The muted news anchors narrated over footage of company executives ducking past reporters and being ushered into the federal courthouse. Day 74 of the Omnitech hearings continues today, the anchor said, lips moving soundlessly on the screen. Federal indictments include criminal negligence, falsification of safety data, and reckless deployment of unvetted biomedical technologies. Marcus lowered the remote, silencing the broadcast entirely. The 4-line in his arm thrummed in time with the faint hiss of the delivery pump, steady doses of the suppressant still circulating through his system. His chest felt cool now, The unnatural warmth that had once pulsed beneath his sternum finally dulled into a hollow echo. But not gone. Anna sat nearby, eyes scanning a tablet filled with fresh genetic reports. She looked as drained as he felt, but her focus remained sharp. In the weeks since the breach, neither of them had slept easily. They still haven't found Saren, Anna said quietly, not looking up. She won't turn up, Marcus replied. People like her always know when to disappear. Anna sighed and finally set the tablet aside. Her last backup models were heavily redacted, but enough of her early sequencing still leaked before the hearing started. Pharmaceutical firms are already circling like vultures. The suppressant works, Marcus said, his voice weary. But this isn't over. Anna nodded grimly. The recombinant genome is dormant now. Suppressed, but integrated. She gestured faintly toward his fore. You, me, millions of others, we're all carriers. Marcus's fingers brushed lightly against his chest. The feeling there was now more akin to static, faint, ever-present background noise. A hum he could no longer fully separate from himself. They're calling it contained, he said, his voice flat. Celebrating a victory. They want the public to believe this was an isolated failure. Something controlled. Something learned from. They haven't learned anything. Marcus shook his head. They still don't understand what this thing really is. Or what it might still become. Anna's expression tightened. The suppressants will need continuous updates. The antigen drift is already producing minor deviations across sectors. Every batch will need recalibration. He didn't answer right away. Outside his window, the autumn wind rattled skeletal branches against the glass. The city below moved forward, eager to resume something resembling normal life. As if normal was still an option. Finally, Marcus spoke, his voice lower. Did you see the Florida report? Anna nodded stiffly. The child? 8 years old. He was part of the second wave of vaccinations. New markers? Marcus asked. Not identical. Divergent scaffold behavior. Early-stage recombination we haven't mapped before. The room settled into heavy silence again. They're calling it minor, Anna finally added. Isolated. They always do. Neither of them spoke for a long while. Finally, Anna stood and straightened her jacket, her exhaustion masked beneath the quiet rhythm of protocol. They'll increase monitoring protocols. New antigen scans. Broader suppressor rotations. But Marcus met her eyes. But this isn't finished. Anna's voice was softer now. I'll notify you when the Florida markers finalize. She left quietly, the door clicking shut behind her. Marcus sat motionless, eyes returning to the muted television where protest footage continued looping in the background. Signs bobbed above the crowd. No more Omnivax. Bio hubris kills. Never again. His gaze drifted back to the foreline, its contents feeding steadily into his bloodstream. Beneath his sternum, the faintest whisper of warmth flickered again. It hadn't truly left. And somewhere, beyond the walls of Marcus's hospital room, something was already stirring again.